Hello, this is Jules Sanderson, and I'm going to talk today about cross-dressing and how to introduce it to a wife or a partner who is not really receptive to the idea. Now, this is something that a lot of people struggle with. So what I'd like to say is that when we're talking to a wife or a partner about cross-dressing, it can be fraught with all sorts of difficulties, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. What it means is the approach has to be one that is done very gently, and in some instances very, very subtly. The challenges of dealing with this can be pretty tough, but at the same time, it's probably better to at least put it partially on the table than completely ignore it. So, when we're thinking about this, we have to think about, what does our partner think? What's their place with this? Well, in most instances, the partner, when they first connected with you, probably felt they wanted a man. They wanted to be with a strong individual who exuded all those positive aspects of masculinity. It's a protector. It's a source of security. Now, to just come out there and say, actually now I think I feel like being a woman, that's going to undermine a lot of things, even in the strongest of marriages, even in the strongest of connections, that maybe you don't want to try and test that out right at the start of bringing cross-dressing into the equation. Now, I'm assuming in this instance that the partner is someone who is really not going to just welcome this news. Certainly there's a lot of people who do welcome it. But let's just assume, and this podcast is really for the people who are working with a partner who really is not interested in this. So let's just assume for a moment that you have tried to address this and they've not really been receptive in the way you'd like them to be. Well, that's okay, because what we're going to do is we're going to start approaching the subject from a slightly oblique angle. So rather than asking her to share your joy in cross-dressing, it may be more appropriate to simply drift towards a slightly more androgynous style of dress. There's a lot of ways to do this. Enjoying wearing softer colours, slightly more fitted pants, or a slightly more femme pair of sandals, for example, can help edge toward a slightly different normal, a new normal, without a word being said about cross-dressing. Remember, this is a long-term plan. There's absolutely no rush in this. So you've got plenty of time to get this right. Gradually getting a bit more of a collection of softer colours, avoiding the hard contrasty colours, moving towards slightly more fitted clothes, things that look a little bit more feminine. They don't have to be overtly feminine. What you're doing is gradually moving towards that middle ground. When we think of the spectrum of gender, where you have male on one end and female on the other, in that mid-ground is really where we're looking to get. Now, that does not have to be overtly feminine, but it also doesn't really want to be particularly masculine. And once you're there, there are a few pretty cool things you can do. So let's think a bit about how we move towards that middle ground. The kind of phraseology that is going to be more comfortable as you adopt a more androgynous look becomes slightly different. Rather than saying, hey, I want to dress like a woman, you can actually start talking about dressing in a slightly more sensitive manner. You're going to be integrating aspects of a feminine look, but we needn't voice that. All you need to do is talk about moving towards a gentler, slightly less aggressive, or I wouldn't really use the word androgynous because that's bringing gender into the equation. You don't want to put that on the table unless someone else does at this stage. It's better to say you're looking for a slightly more sensitive look. And you're feeling more sensitive yourself. This reflects who you are. Now, making that connection, if in conversation this comes up, saying, you feel slightly more sensitive and you want to dress in a manner that's, less aggressive and maybe a little bit more gentle in approach. That's a nice connection to try and make. But there's absolutely no need to put this on the table unless you really feel it's necessary, or unless the partner that you're with raises the matter first. Now, once you've found that middle ground, and I've always loved the idea of, capris or jeans that are a little shorter, and just a pastel t-shirt. Now, if you take that idea, well, it becomes really easy to move that into a feminine place. If you wanted to put a big pair of feminine sunglasses on and a tiny bit of lip gloss, or some bright lipstick if you prefer, suddenly there's no doubt about it, you're cross-dressing. When you wear slightly heeled shoes rather than guy shoes, just wearing that t-shirt and those jeans can suddenly be cross-dressing. There's a lot of little tricks like that which work. You could switch up the t-shirt for a sweater, and then all you need to do is put on a little dangly necklace, and there's no question about it, you're cross-dressing. In other words, finding that grey area in the middle of the sort of androgynous look, it becomes very easy to turn this into cross-dressing. And in fact, what we're talking about here is not just about dressing, it's about feeling more feminine. And when you do gradually find yourself becoming very comfortable feeling feminine, it does become really simple to switch from the androgynous look to suddenly you're sitting in a nice beach cafe with some heels, some sunglasses, and there's no doubt about it, you're cross-dressing. Now, that may not be what you do directly in front of your wife, but it is easy, and once it becomes easy, it becomes something you're much more likely to do. So there's a few little ideas about how to occupy that middle ground, maybe not even raising the subject of cross-dressing, but definitely moving towards a place where you are allowing yourself to feel more feminine, and as you feel more feminine, you're actually going to find yourself acting in a more feminine manner, and ultimately being more feminine. So this androgynous look, this finding of the middle ground, is really key. I'm inclined to think it's also very important to start educating yourself a little about ideas of non-binary gender. Listen to a few podcasts like this one, but there's also the Gender Rebels, and there's some other very, very good ones where you can actually really start dealing with the idea of thinking of gender in a different manner. So instead of talking about things which are specific to a man or a woman, we start thinking about, if you fall in love with a person rather than a man or a woman. If a person feels more like doing X, Y, and Z rather than if a man or if a woman starts doing X, Y, Z. These are very subtle things, but the more you begin to think about them and adopt them into your lifestyle, actually, the more you're likely to start finding a comfortable place in that gender fluid area that is between male and female, and is a very easy jumping off point to actually step into that much more feminine version of who you are. I want to also say, actually, that a lot of people who experiment with cross-dressing have suppressed that more feminine side of who they are, and so they're going through cycles, they're going through this binge purge process. But as you gradually find that middle ground, you're going to find that there is much less of that binge purge process going on. And by binging and purging, I'm talking about people who are going out buying lots of very femme clothes and then feel so terrible about it and they end up throwing them away. As you move into the more gender fluid area of that mid-ground, you'll find you buy some clothes which, well, some of them will be definitely feminine, but most of them will be somewhere in the middle. And so you're not going to need to binge or purge, but more to the point, you actually feel more as though you're in that middle ground. And that can be a very, very comfortable place to be. My name's Jules Sanderson. Feel free to reach me through this website or through the comments section below. And I'll be putting up another post sometime in the next week or so.